Do you yearn for travel that involves outdoor adventure and learning? I do. I also have a passion for all things farming and agriculture. I've traveled to exotic jungles to learn about growing chocolate. I even once owned my own organic vegetable and sunflower farm. And now I'm planning my journey back to agriculture. Agritourism, defined as travel that involves some type of agricultural experience. Agritourism is all about entertaining. But the marketing strategist in me knows that at its core, agritourism is really about educating, and education affects change. My future farm needs to deliver a profound experience to all of its visitors. It needs to educate people about food, health, and climate. Join me to learn from experienced agritourism farmers and entrepreneurs and help me build my future farm strategy. And who knows, maybe one day soon you'll find yourself in a tropical jungle cutting open cacao pods with a machete, or savoring an outdoor plant-to-plate community dinner with 100 guests at a farm in Illinois. So let's tap into the agritourist in you. She is a passionate farm entrepreneur from Maryland, driven to preserve her farmland and build a thriving farmyard business. Renee Wilson was born to a teacher and dairy farmer. She was a 4-H member and then earned an education in TV production and marketing during college. But her heart and passion was in agriculture. She returned to her roots and leveraged her skills to identify how to secure and access land as a young farmer. It started as a seasonal roadside farmstand that has evolved into what she now calls the Farmyard, a full-year farm operating on 40 acres. Renee opens her farm to the public to give positive and real agriculture experiences, connects consumers with farmers, and gives kids the same experiences she had as a kid, regardless of their income level, for free. However, she is running a business and generates revenue from riding lessons, horsemanship programs, field trips, and birthday parties. Renee's passion has not gone unnoticed. She reveals a story about someone who had an impact on her early on, someone whose kindness stuck with her. It was the first time she told this story publicly. Renee's story inspired me to take some action. I did a little research on the person Renee mentions and might have a small follow-up to her story. Please listen to the very end. Renee is a force in her community and has an innate ability to connect, involve, and give back. You will love her energy and passion. I certainly did. This is Jen Ross, your Agritourist podcast host. If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating and review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Enjoy my conversation with Renee Wilson. So, Renee, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background first? I was trying to dig a little bit and there wasn't a lot out there. So I'd love to know a little bit more about your background before we get into what you're doing and the role you're taking on with agritourism.
Yeah, so I grew up on a dairy farm in Northern Maryland and had the opportunities to participate in programs like 4-H, FFA, the Maryland Dairy Princess program. And during those times, I had some really cool pivotal moments where my parents encouraged me to kind of get involved in agriculture and tie connections with the public. And so one of those pieces with the Maryland Dairy Princess program, I had the opportunity to go to the Ravens Stadium and talk about Fuel Up to Play 60. So that was a chocolate milk initiative to encourage healthy growth in children, and partnering with somebody like the NFL or that organization allowed these kids to kind of see the unique opportunities that kind of tie in with ag that are hidden behind the scenes. Another one was the Turkey Hill commercial. So we took a cow to a green screen. And so we used one of the cows that I used for 4-H. And so she was almost all white. So we got to paint all of her black dots. And then they decorated her digitally. And so she was the swirly cow for that commercial. So two things that just kind of opened my eyes to agriculture in a completely different perspective than what a typical farm child might get to do. And I loved that. So then as time went on, I decided to pursue a degree in television and radio at the University of Florida. So I ended up going into WUFT's news station and interviewing different farmers. And we found that my niche obviously was in agriculture and telling those kind of stories and connecting deeply with people involved with animals and then producing consumers' food. So we talked a bit about that. And as I was telling these stories, I found that there were some missing pieces and misconceptions about agriculture. And I wanted to give people at home an authentic source of that information and really have that hands-on experience and conversation directly from a farmer. And so my experience with my degree allowed me to kind of see a different perspective that others as consumers were seeing about farming, but may not have been getting the full story. So we wanted to create that at home. So I came back home in 2016. We started this little roadside stand, and it has flourished into the Farmyard now.
So going back to what you said, what were, I guess, what were those missing pieces that you think people needed to learn about in,
Sure.
in a general sense?
I'd say animal husbandry, of course, is a big topic with any kind of production agriculture, and understanding that farmers genuinely care about their livestock. I talk about my cow Lily, and so she produced milk for different people that were just drinking Turkey Hill milk. So just to be able to kind of draw and paint a picture of what farmers really are like and how we can tell our stories better. A lot of times farmers are so busy working those really long hours that they can't make time to speak to the consumer. And that's where I think with my communications experience, I can do more of that. And so I've dedicated my life to being able to open my farm to the public and giving them those connections with a real farmer and having those conversations and those questions about hot topics in agriculture. Also giving people the experiences that I had as a farm kid. We open a combine door and let kids ride in the field and help harvest corn or beans during the season. So that's something that we want to do to allow that open conversation. And so they can ask questions about pesticides, herbicides, and see the technology behind it. And also, I think there's a misunderstanding of how intelligent farmers are and some of the science that goes into it. So we want to have those conversations so there's a real life experience and connecting those dots.
And just to back up a little, your parents obviously pushed you a little.
Sure.
What do you, I guess, when you look back, what do you think about that, how they pushed you, and what did they see that maybe you weren't aware of at the time?
Yes. So my mom is a teacher. My dad was a dairy farmer. At one point, we were milking about 210 cows, was the largest we
Wow.
ever really got to. But they both said I can go get a degree in whatever I wanted. And so as an ag kid, I a lot of times sought opportunities outside of the ag realm. And so the TV and radio stretch was something completely different. And then as time went on, I realized that I wanted to return to my roots and all of the things that taught me responsibility, hard work, being authentic, and be able to take that and share it with others. And then that degree just kind of went hand in hand. But both of my parents said if I did not want to go into an agricultural career, that was quite all right. And now I've landed kind of in the heart and soul of connecting everybody with agriculture in our community. So that's how that
That's
landed.
a great thing. That's great that they were also open-minded about that as well, which allowed you to explore and look what happened, you know? So tell me about what you've created. Give me a kind of a lay of the land of what you created now. Is this separate from does your do your parents still have their farm? Are you part of that, or are you a separate entity?
Yep. So it's a separate entity. When I came back, we kind of started on the home farm is what we would have called it. And we talked to the public just on the corner as a little roadside stand, and it was seasonal. Just we started in the fall, and then people were asking for more. So we broke into then winter, then spring, and now we're 12 months out of the year. And in 2021, we lost the home farm, but it's still in Wilson family. So we are next door now. So I've purchased the farm nearby, which is, again, something that's a big hurdle for young farmers to be able to purchase property and have the opportunity to start fresh. So I've kind of seen both sides of that land ownership coin. So the properties touch. We are operating on 40 acres now, but the reason why we were able to do that was because the community raised $63,000 for us to reopen. And I do think that a big piece of that is because we opened our farm to the public for free to start. So again, my mission was to give positive agricultural experiences, connect consumers with farmers, and then also give kids the same experiences I had as a kid, regardless of what their income might look like. Then we've broken it into larger opportunities. For instance, they can do riding lessons. We have a horsemanship program. We do field trips. So those activities come with a price so that we can take care of our staff and offer quality services. But with our general hours of operation, it is free to come and visit. And we are encouraging people to step outside their comfort zones and learn a bit about ag.
So to buy this property, was it a crowdfunding campaign? Like, what did you physically do, to get the community to engage in this?
Sure. So we just told our story and said with any family, generational transition is tough. And so there were some differences in what we wanted to do with the farm versus some relatives. And so we tried and we lost the bid. We couldn't afford it. So the community was hoping to save the original property in which we were working off of, but instead now we have just purchased the farm next door. So I was able to work with a farm credit opportunity. And so we've taken a loan and I'm paying on that. But ultimately the community drove us to continue because I could have went back into a career in advertisement marketing. That's what I had done prior, right after college, just kind of having some additional income. And this allowed us to know that the public wanted us to continue and grow. So that it doesn't take much to build a new property. That 60 some thousand doesn't last long, but it was really that push that the community gave us. And just within a couple of weeks, they had done it. So that's what really drove our family to want to continue.
What advice would you give to, any person looking for an opportunity, to get land? I mean, that's probably one of the barriers to entry. Some people want to do some form of farming, but a huge barrier to entry is land and access to land. And then if you lease land, then there's the concern of your putting this investment in the land and it could be taken back. And especially if you're focused on soil and the infrastructure alone, then that goes to the landowner. So what kind of advice would you give? Because I know this is a struggle that all ages are facing. It's not just a young person issue. To me, it's an all age, this is huge.
Sure. And I will start off by saying I'm a young farmer and by no means an expert in this field, but to be able to say that I've witnessed some things firsthand, it has given me quite the vision of what's happened to other young farmers. So we were fortunate enough with the farm that we're on now. We had a good relationship with the neighboring farm and they were looking to sell, and it was a private sale. For other young farmers, there's different states that offer tax credits that help offset a little bit of that and give an owner of a farm the opportunity to take advantage of those tax credits and help a young farmer. And so I'm hoping that we can have those discussions in Maryland too. We also have quite a good group of farmers in this area that work in farmers clubs. So I see a lot of partnerships with new and younger farmers coming in, meeting those other farmers who might not have children or a generation to pass on, and they're working together and teaming up. That seems to work pretty well here. And then there's just other programs that are available, but I think we can always do better and open up opportunities. Farm Credit, specifically Horizon Farm Credit, offers a jumpstart program. And so it's a $10,000 program for young farmers. In our area, it's 5 different states that competed. I received it in 2022. And so I was part of an older group. They call it Shark Tanks for farmers, kind of. But
I like that.
Yeah, it's really rigorous. A lot of fun. Really challenges you to step outside of your comfort zone. But anyway, so there's 2 different tiers. Jump starts for that new and beginning farmer within like less than a couple years of experience. I'm a little bit farther along than that, so I applied for the Farmers on the Rise Award. But those are 2 things. Again, it's 10,000, but it's something. And then Farm Credit's also a loan agency. So being able to connect those resources. I'm a big fan of Farm Bureau. So I'm involved in Maryland Farm Bureau's programs, and they are really good at connecting the right people too. So having that network is really important. It's not easy. I won't say that there is an easy solution or any kind of equation to get land, but there's definitely different avenues that everyone's trying to take.
Excellent. So how many animals are on your farm right now?
Oh, that's a complicated question. So I'll list off what kind of animals we have, if that's okay, and then we
Yeah.
can give you a general idea. So again, we're working on 40 acres. About half of that is crops. The other half is agritourism at some capacity. We have some garden plots, and then the animals, of course, are a huge draw. Our biggest program right now is the equine department. So we do have 13 horses that are of riding size that we will use in our program. And then we also have poultry, so guineas, chickens, turkeys, peacocks. We also have pigs that we breed. So we talk about meat production. Again, we want to be authentic. We're talking about all of the facets of agriculture, not just the fun side of it. And then we also have goats, sheep. We're working hard to restore rare breeds. So some of our sheep are South Downs and a Barbados blackbelly sheep. And then I also have a lineback heifer that's bred right now too. So we do have some cows here as well. What we cannot have all on site, we partner with other farms. So we have about 50 to 60 children that show animals in the local fairs. 20 of them were rabbit kids. So we do have a lot of rabbits on site, but those other partners are within 5 or 10 minutes from us. And those children can then partner with another farmer. We help facilitate that and they get to show as well. So those 50 to 60 kids, about 30 of them are off site with other farmers. And those animals are usually not on our farm unless we're doing clinics. But quite the plethora of animals for sure.
I was going to say, and I think that's terrific that you're working with other farms. Did that come about naturally?
Yes. So I love to consider all of my friends in FFA and 4-H as lifetime friends. And so what we're seeing is the Farmyard created a place for anybody in the public eye to participate in programs like taking care of the animals, 4-H, FFA, et cetera. So we are helping children ages, say 3 or 4 to 12 really get engaged. And then they're getting excited at that age, becoming involved in the local middle school programs, then the high school program, and then these livestock programs too. And so a lot of these farmers I'm working with are former 4-H and FFA members who are now giving back to the community and are the next wave, and they're getting ready to have children or already have children. So it really is cool to watch this cycle back in, and we all want to give for the same reasons. It's a really fun program to watch.
That's terrific. That really is terrific. How are you defining agritourism? Hey, it's Jen. I need to interrupt this podcast episode to talk about 2 really important topics: farms and food. This will be quick. Here's the situation. Small farms face increasing expenses. Funding for farms and nonprofits has an uncertain future. Labor shortages and climate change are a constant factor. At the same time, over 10% of our country's population are single seniors living alone. It's impossible for many of these community members to shop at farmers markets and purchase fresh local foods. These community members lose out, and so do the farmers. So when I hear about business models that help both the farmer and the community member alike, I want to spread the word, and I really hope that these models are looked at and replicated. Heart and Soil Collective is a Berkshire-based nonprofit that purchases produce directly from small farms and delivers this produce to local homes at no cost. They are feeding the farmer and they are feeding the community member. On March 15th, Heart and Soil Collective launched a crowdfunding campaign called Locally Grown to Local Homes. This important campaign funds their community produce and soup programs. The goal? To raise $60,000 to pay local farmers for their produce and to deliver to local homes, and also to make soups delivered in the winter. Heart and Soil needs your help. Click on the link in our bio, go to the heartbeatfarms.com website, or check out the podcast notes to contribute to their crowdfunding campaign. And if you can't contribute, then just find a local farm and become a regular customer. We need to stay focused on supporting our local farms and strengthening our regional food systems. Thank you for the listen and enjoy the rest of the podcast episode.
Oh, okay. So I think that there are different pieces of agritourism and it's very clear that different farms do it in different ways. I like to say we utilize agri involvement. So we are trying to get people hands-on as much as possible, not only giving them a positive experience, but also that hands-on, taking it home and applying it to real life. So I think agritourism is a very broad word right now, but it should encompass a lot of pieces in the puzzle. So you can say U-Picks, corn mazes, any kind of other program that allows people to come just for a brief photo op, picking tulips, etc. But I do think that there's another deeper root invested in agritourism, and if done properly, it's ag education too. So I think there's a partnership there, if that's a fair way to say it.
No, I'm 100% in agreement. I think that's where the real impact and value is.
But I will add one thing to that, if it's all right.
Yeah, please.
I do find when I applied for loans when I was trying to buy this farm, I was told that agritourism wasn't real agriculture at the time. Now that would have been about 2021. And I couldn't get loans that I wanted just as an agritourism business and showing that business plan. And so I'm hopeful, and I do see traction, and Baltimore County specifically has done a great job of starting to help other farmers reach outside of the traditional norm of agriculture and work on expanding what agritourism or other value added products might look like and how that does help. And it's real farming. It's just a new way of farming. And that's been a really good conversation to have in our county.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you bring that up because it is a huge factor. Wherever you live or whatever you're applying for, you need to really understand how they're also defining it. I think that's a really good point. So thank you for bringing that up. So you mentioned that do you have vegetables on the farm you're growing as well? And what's that about?
So the majority of our farm is in corn and beans right now.
Okay.
We do have garden plots, which allow other people to grow their own food. And then we grow a few pumpkins here and there. But ultimately, since we've moved, our goal is to expand into that and grow more and more of our own products. But I will talk to the garden plot side. There have been some really neat people that have come in. One gentleman's from Ukraine. Another one is from Somalia, and they're growing food from these other countries that we don't typically see, and they're teaching us about it. And
That's
so to
great.
watch, it's a lot of fun. And those are people that don't have access to land. And when I first started with the farmyard, the first year or two, people teased a little bit and said, how are you going to get kids to feed your animals and pay for it? And then also, how are you going to get people to pay for property? Because in our area, it's a little bit easier to have access to that. It might be more expensive, but we have a great supply of land that we need to protect. And so those individuals either had too much shade, not the right soil content. And so we were able to provide a space for that. And then we've kind of became this big happy family. We also do grow flowers. So we have a whole area for U-Picks. Zinnias are a big popular one for us. And so we're expanding as we go.
Just two questions on that. So the community garden, like how many plots do you have? Like how does that work?
Sure. So they're usually 25 by 25 foot spaces about, and they can get a double plot if they'd like. There are 10 of them right now, plus the one farmer has asked, or this one gentleman who's using property, he has asked for a larger, so it's almost about a half an acre that he's using for his plants. Again, the hardest thing for us right now is we need to have water to get to those plots. And because we're on a farm that didn't have anything and we rebuilt everything, we're limited in what we can provide until that infrastructure is there.
Yeah. And the U-Pick, tell me a little bit more about that. Like how many acres and how do you control that? Especially with U-Pick flowers. I can imagine that it's a little different than a pumpkin or an apple, although I'm sure there's challenges there. But U-Pick is definitely become more popular outside of the fruit. I think with flowers and even with vegetables, I see it becoming more popular as long as it's controlled. Mm-hmm. So tell me about your experience with that.
Sure. So ours is again just rebuilding. So it's lower scale. There's some other farmers that are doing a lot more than us in the area, but we primarily like to use zinnias, and then we have some perennials in there too. We're talking about some other arches that we're going to put into play, but We have a snowball stand, so people come, they check in, they can get scissors and a bucket and head out and cut just like any other you pick. Everyone's pretty respectful. We talk about how zinnias have different shoots that come out, so if you cut in dead head, that's helping out too. We find that photographers love coming out as well and taking advantage of that space. So it's not necessarily a ton of space that's there, but the memories are what people are looking for. And then having the opportunity to cut something fresh. We charge 50 cents a stem. Pretty cheap, just something fun and making that memory. And then we'll do mommy and me sessions. And so we'll see what other classes we come into this year. We're working on a lot of those classes.
Okay. What is your next stage vision for all of this? I'd say put money aside for a second. Like, what do you want to, where's the vision going? Like, what do you want to ultimately create with all of this?
I think there's a lot of potential to continue to connect food to consumer. There are people asking for more opportunities to get involved with animals too. So I think I foresee from an animals and livestock standpoint, we're going to continue to pour into the local 4-H and FFA programs, the local high school and middle school programs. And that is stemming from multiple schools in our area. So I have an intern from Harford County. I've had interns from Baltimore County that are experiencing these programs for their supervised agricultural experiences. Those are the ones that we want to encourage to give back to the younger generation. So I'd love to see that number of 50 double if we can, that are going to these fairs, because they're the future. They're the ones that are going to help feed our country. And they're a lot of them are coming from no experience in agriculture or at least a couple generations removed from the farm. For the business side, we're definitely expanding our equine department as much as we can. We received a Maryland Horse Industry Board grant, which we're grateful for, and that's going to help with our children that are learning.
Congratulations.
And
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. And we also appreciate working with the Maryland State Fair. So we are trying to get children down there. And again, a lot of my kids, I'm growing with them. So my business started in 2016, and I have children now that are just hitting middle school and high school, and they are telling me what they want. So does that mean we're going to have prom pictures and backdrops? Possibly, maybe with the favorite animals that they fed when they were kids. So we're looking for that.
Yes. Love that.
And then the final piece, I think, is trying to find a way to continue to expand in terms of food. So we are growing products here and we want to grow more products. We're going to start raising broiler chickens is the plan. And we also have the Cooney pigs. So we want to provide those food sources. Markets are something that have kind of been paved through Baltimore County, and there's easier steps there. It's not easy, but ideally, I'm hoping that I can help lead that charge and be able to do something with either a market or farm to table cafe down the line. But it's going to take years, and there's some hurdles and misunderstandings about where agriculture falls in terms of county code and making sure that we are abiding by the laws, but also there's an understanding of what agriculture needs versus what's realistic.
Yeah, that's important. Any surprises along the way so far? Anything that's really surprised you from, you thought people would react a certain way to something and it's, or the kids, have they surprised you in any way?
Yes. So I say that I am growing every day. And no matter how many times I think I've mastered something in business, it challenges me the next day and puts me right back into that humble position. So I really appreciate that. Children don't know, nor do they care about survey lines, permits, or any of those things. And I think that's what kept me going during our transition from one farm to the other, because they just wanted to come see the animals. And so I had a cornfield. I didn't have grass, but I did have a pile of mulch, and that's what the kids wanted to play on. So just being able to see them find joy in the simple things, it kind of opened that window for me to realize I didn't have to have it perfectly made. I just had to stay positive and encourage them to enjoy it. And the farm would create the memories for them. And that's their positive attitude equals positive experience. The other cool experience that I had a gentleman come. We do birthday parties. That's a big piece here too. And so he came, and I was told that there was somebody who had done well for himself, and he was into horse racing. And I said, well, don't judge me. I have backyard ponies. I grew up on a black and white pony because she blended in with the cows. So that's kind of our fun tease. And so I knew the gentleman was really knowledgeable about business. And so we have this birthday party, and I was embarrassed because I didn't have grass. I didn't have everything ready yet because it was my first year on this new property. And I wanted him to go do the animal tour because I knew at least I could communicate and use my skills from college and my experience. He didn't go on the tour, and he didn't ride on the hayride wagon. And so I was deflated because I thought that he didn't want to know more, but in reality, he was just absorbing it all. And so when he went to leave, he shook my hand and said, I know that horse feed isn't cheap. Keep going. You're doing a great job. And so he handed me $500. Wow. And I didn't know at the time. I just stuck it in my pocket. And so as time went on, we asked the gentleman who was hosting the party who this guy could have been. And he said, well, if you're familiar with the Pandora Jewelry Company, Michael Lund Peterson.
Oh, wow.
So I have not told that story publicly. My girls know about it, but it really had an impact. And so hopefully he hears this and knows that it really, it made a difference in somebody's life.
That's amazing. You got to me. That's terrific. It really is.
Kindness goes far. And so it was just neat to know he cared that much or saw the potential and didn't have to sit in any tour and already knew it. So I'm still going. And so I hope he comes back one day so I can show him.
Well, yeah, let's, he will. He will. Pretty amazing. What you've done is pretty amazing. I love the way you've connected the entire community in different aspects of what you're doing. It's, things are fitting, nicely, and you're leveraging, which is going to help build from everything from the grants, and how you're going through that through the kids and even the 4-H program, like how that is something you experienced and how it's now being leveraged to help generations coming up. Like, that's huge. Like, I didn't even, I was like thinking about that. I'm like, because it's like, how do you keep this going? Because I think that's a challenge in today's world. And you've kind of found a great way to do that. And I don't hear that a lot, because I think people are challenged with, okay, I'm into this, I'm passionate about this, but where's the generations that are coming up that are going to evolve it and solve some of these problems that we're having? So I think that is a really unique aspect of what you're doing. And I think, that definitely needs to get out there. So thank you. I'm excited for you.
Well, I greatly appreciate the time and being able to share our story. It's always been about morals over money. So we're hoping that agriculture just continues to have a great path in front of it. And we're happy to lead that charge if we can.
Excellent. All right. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
So you heard Renee's story about interacting with Michael Lund Peterson, the founder of Pandora Jewelry USA. And her story definitely brought some tears to my eyes. So I had to do a little digging to try to find Michael and figure out a way to connect with him. I love that Renee told us her story, but I thought it was just as important to tell Michael how he impacted a young, passionate farm entrepreneur who was starting out on her journey. And as I thought, we don't always realize the impact we have on people. Here's my email to Michael, which I didn't even know if it would ever reach him, but fortunately it did. Michael, I am the host of an agritourism podcast in the U.S. I recently interviewed a young businesswoman from Maryland who you crossed paths with several years ago. You probably didn't realize the significant impact you had on her. She revealed the story to me during our podcast interview and began to tear up. I have not launched her podcast yet because I felt a personal obligation to find you and share this interview clip with you. I guess I was hoping that you would provide a response to me to read to her, record something for me to integrate, or just reach out to her directly. We sometimes don't realize the impact we have on people, and I just wanted you to know how you impacted this young farm entrepreneur. Her name is Renee Wilson, and she owns the Farmyard, located at 21150 Old York Road, Parkton, Maryland. I am including a link to the video clip of her interaction with you and the impact your kindness had on her. Although every day is a new challenge, Renee's business is thriving and she is laser focused on building her vision. And to my surprise and excitement, Michael responded the next day to my email. Hi, Jennifer. My office forwarded your email to me earlier today. I checked out the link and I have to admit, I teared up as well. I do remember the young lady very well. I love young entrepreneurs, especially with the passion and knowledge she displayed about her new project. I had no doubt she will be successful in life, even though I only was with her for a couple of hours seeing her work and talking to her. Thank you so much for sending me your email. I had no clue I had that kind of impact on other people. I just try to be genuine and kind. Best regards, Michael Lund. So the message here, be open, be proud. People do take notice. And let's tell people more about how they really impact us. Have a great day. I hope our AgriTourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from, whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agra-tourist.com. Until next time. So I was recently listening to one of the Grounded in Maine podcasts produced by Amy Fagan. The podcast is an open conversation about being mindful about how we show up in the world. It's focused on sustainability and how sustainability impacts every part of our life. What are some of the most important takeaways that people will get from your podcast?
One of the things that I hope that people will take away from the podcast is encouragement. Like, I want them to not feel like you have to spend thousands of dollars to be part of the solution, because, there are a lot of sustainable, things that say sustainability or sustainable, like solar panels or organic cotton and stuff like that. Like, some things are just more expensive because they have that tagline, that phrase or whatever. But there are so many ways that you can be sustainable. You just have to be a little bit creative. And so I'm putting out all these ideas that what people are doing, just to put the thought out there that we can all be part of it without going broke.
So how can people find your podcast?
My podcast is wherever podcasts are found. It is just called Grounded in Maine. I also have my Instagram is where I am most active, and the Instagram handle is Grounded in Maine Podcasts.